Most analysts focus on the military and nuclear aspects of AUKUS. As health professionals, you focus on the health risks brought about by AUKUS. What health risks does AUKUS carry? How will it endanger the environment?
The major part of AUKUS, as you'd be aware, is the naval nuclear submarines. And nuclear reactors, wherever they are, whether they're on land or in a submarine or wherever, reactors always carry a risk to health. The risk in the event of accident or, for example, a military attack for a submarine. So in that instance, there's the risk of radioactive material being released into the environment, and that can contaminate the environment for long periods of time and affect human health by the radioactive exposure. And we know that there's no safe level of radioactive exposure. So we can't say that you need to get a high level of exposure to have impacts on the health. Another aspect of the health is the problem of the high-level waste which the submarines will produce, and again this poses radioactive risks for those who are exposed to it and for future generations. Probably over and above all of that, there are the health risks from war itself, and because AUKUS is increasing tensions within the region, this is a very bad development. So that's our primary concern, the fact that wars have overwhelming health impacts. Often health problems are caused by war that we have no solution to. There are long-term psychological problems for which some interventions can be made, but a number of the problems created by war are lifelong, and not only lifelong for the victim, but continue through into future generations. So preventing the health impacts of warfare is our primary goal, and particularly the health impacts of a nuclear war, which should be on quite a different scale again. And we promote the imperative to prevent health problems before they arise, and that's the reason that we need to prevent wars before things start to get out of control. So prevention is our key message in relation to warfare. There are other aspects such as the enormous funding which is going into the AUKUS program when significant parts of our healthcare system aren't adequately funded. So there's the economic disparity too.
How do you plan to make the Australian government aware of this? Do you think your campaigning efforts will have an impact on government decisions?
In terms of campaigning, we do the usual types of campaigning with briefing materials and rallies and meetings and events like that. There was a parliamentary inquiry recently, which you're probably aware of, in relation to the nuclear safety bill, which is to authorise various aspects of this submarine development. Unfortunately, that anybody was able to have input into that inquiry. It was a parliamentary inquiry. Unfortunately, the report from the inquiry in relation to nuclear waste was not good. It gave the Defence Minister the power to designate any part of the country basically a high-level nuclear waste dumping ground, which is very bad policy, a very bad outcome. So we need to keep advocating, not just on that. We're advocating in relation to the nuclear waste, the regulation of the submarines, and we need more open discussion with the government about the whole proposal. So we've got a lot of work to do. We need to keep advocating. Governments do need to listen, even though the government hasn't made much indication thus far of taking these concerns seriously enough. We will keep advocating, and the governments do need to listen and they need to respond to community concerns.
As far as you know, besides the health and the environment risks we just talked about, what do the Australian ordinary people fear about AUKUS, such as the costs of the agreement, the use of nuclear, and the close connections with the US?
On all of those, I would say. On the costs, yes, there's been quite an outcry about the fact that so much has been spent on the proposed nuclear submarines, when a lot of other areas of our life, of Australian life, need additional funding. And I think those concerns will probably grow as our military expenditure grows, is predicted to grow over coming years. On the matter of the submarines being nuclear powered, yes, Australians have consistently rejected civilian nuclear power. There are already people saying, well, if we're going to have nuclear powered submarines, why don't we have civilian nuclear power? Which seems seems like bringing nuclear power into Australia through the back door, not because Australians actually want it. In relation to the United States, yes, there is growing concern that at the fact that Australia joins practically every time the US goes to war. Australia is there. So there is growing concern about that, and particularly with the prospect of Donald Trump being the next president of the United States, there are concerns around that too, which I think most people are even a bit too scared to talk about publicly, because it's quite a frightening concept.
The main justification given for AUKUS is the security it provides against a possible attack by China at some future date. What do you think of this? Will the US promotion of militarism push Australia to join any war at the behest of the US?
We don't see AUKUS as increasing our security. Anything that might push us closer towards a war, particularly a war between two major military powers, that is not increasing our security, that's reducing our security. So we believe that all the nations involved need to put maximum effort not into military capacity, such as AUKUS, but we need to put maximum effort into diplomacy, into improving the relationships all round. And we're very pleased to see that the relationship between Australia and China has improved under the current government, but it needs to improve much further still. And we need an understanding that if a war were to break out involving the US and China and other nations, then it would be catastrophic at every level, in human terms, economic terms, trade, anything else in terms of human rights or anything else that we care about. Then war would be absolutely the worst outcome, and a war between nuclear armed nations should be totally off the agenda. We shouldn't even be contemplating the possibility of war.